Okay, we've got the thumbs up. Are we recording, Chris? Okay. All right then. Welcome everyone. It's August 12th and we will have our meetings of the Tompkins County Development Corporation and the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency. We will start with the Development Corporation first. However, we do have 2 cards for public comment.
Is the microphone muted? Jerry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jerry. Yeah, so we have everyone here except for Mr. Dietz, who is tuning in on Zoom, but can participate but not vote. Anyway, as I was saying, even though we're having the LDC meeting first, I think we can move forward with the public comments. I have 2 blue cards. Teresa Alt is first.
So I'm Teresa Alt, 206 Eddy Street, City of Ithaca. And I have miscellaneous remarks about the Beacon Communities application. I was surprised to see in the authorizing resolution that the agency will acquire, quote, other items of tangible personal property, end quote. To me, that seems to threaten future tenants' rights to their own property. That seems unbelievable, but it would be good to explain the legalese. I spoke yesterday about the need to protect the Ithaca City School District from increased costs that would not be covered by abated property taxes. I mentioned that research predicting that the school district's enrollments would fall was very flawed, as it did not take into account additional housing planned at Southworks and elsewhere. I suggested that the taxes to be abated not include those for the Ithaca City School District, since the school district had no representation on the IDA board. This morning, I read Peter Wissaker's opinion piece in the Ithaca Voice. His analyses are far more sophisticated than mine, but I particularly like the very simple one, number 5. It suggests that once there are residents in the new buildings, Beacon pay $5,000 annually for each student in the district. Underlying problem is New York State law that requires public schools to be largely financed by local property taxes, which are fundamentally unfair. It would be much better if schools were financed by state income or wealth taxes based on ability to pay. Could you, the IDA, campaign for that?
Thank you, Teresa. I'm just going to urge everyone to speak up because our air conditioning is not working and we have 4 high-powered fans and they make a lot of noise. So, Peter Wissaker. And thanks to the gentleman from facilities who brought those fans.
I'm Peter Wissaker and I live on Tioga Street, downtown. On balance, building of the Beacon Communities apartments is a positive thing. I realize the IDA's tendered their standard affordable housing abatement to the company, but let's be realistic. Beacon Communities is in a better financial position than any of the taxing jurisdictions who are being asked to sacrifice in the name of the housing being built. Probably no. Tompkins County, I'll just rehearse it quickly here. Tompkins County is facing $9.8 million budget deficit, and that's before accounting for restoring the air conditioning here. In May, it was estimated that payroll and fringe benefits in the city of Ithaca are expected to add $6.6 million to its costs this coming year, and they're just expecting $1.7 million increase in revenue. And the school district budget increased by $8.6 million this year, mostly driven by salary and benefit obligations. State aid grew somewhat, but they had to come to the taxpayers for $3.9 million and draw on their reserves for nearly $9.4 million. Yes, that rainy day fund drawdown suggests it is indeed raining. Times are tough. Given this unequal financial health, I'd urge Beacon communities, and thank you for coming, to consider the following. 1, voluntarily increase the contribution to the pilot by 50%. That would add an additional $84,000 to the tax base. Increasing the pilot by 50% would reduce schools' share of the abatement by $1.6 million over 30 years and give the other taxing jurisdictions a break as well. 2, base the pilot's 2% increase on the net operating income from the second year instead of the first. The building will be full then, so making the change will add a little to the tax base each year. 3, although the law constrains the developer's ability to raise rent, and we recognize that, the value of the building will likely be growing at a faster rate. So perhaps you could bump up the 2% to 2.5%. Voluntarily, you could also write a check to the county to cover 50% of the lost sales taxes. I think that would be much appreciated. Number 5, as Teresa mentioned, add a rider to the agreement stating that the company will contribute $5,000 for each student enrolled in the Ithaca City School District who lives in the community that you're building. And finally, offer to consider any abatements as an investment in the project, an equity investment, that is. If you sell the property, the company sells the property and makes a profit, the taxing jurisdictions could be repaid the taxes they didn't collect because of the deal and given a share of the profit proportionate to their contribution to the project. I hope the company, guys, will consider taking some of the suggestions offered here. It will buy everyone a lot of goodwill for not a tremendous amount of cash. And hopefully some of the ideas here in the future can be integrated into the IDA's standard affordable housing offer going forward when it gets revised. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, so let's move forward with the Development Corporation agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Bert?
Nope.
Okay. So we'll go right on to the one item of business that we have, which is the Ithaca College bond refinancing agreement final approval. Can we get a motion to get that on the floor? Greg moves, thank you. Prentice, thank you for the second. Who's here to speak to this?
I'll actually defer to Russ. He's been involved with this project, and he'll call our speaker up as well.
Hi, Russ.
Hi, everybody. I apologize for not being able to be there personally. I had an appointment this meeting that I just wanted to make sure I could get to, so I appreciate it. First, I'd like to welcome my colleague Elizabeth Hughes, who I think is on as well. Maybe some of you have heard her name, but she's been, instrumental in the behind-the-scenes work and a lot of things that we all do, including this transaction as well as the Ellicott Station issues that we're dealing with. So I just wanted her to meet the board, at least virtually, and we'll bring her to a meeting in the near future. So Ithaca College, yes, we've gone through the public hearing process. The TEFRA approval, which is the county approval, was received. It went through the committee and then to the full ledge. We've been working diligently with the college, its bankers, its council, and other parties to get this transaction to market. And assuming the board considers and adopts the resolution today, they will be posting the offering document today and hopefully closing either later this month or early next month. So, and again, it's a very straightforward refunding transaction. There's always more work than you think, but this is a relatively straightforward transaction and no new money, no new buildings or anything going up.
And
I think I spoke with a couple people yesterday, that somebody may be there from the college. I'm not sure if they were able to make it or not.
Yes.
Come on forward.
Hi, Ross.
Hey, sorry about that. I know I told you I'd see you there, but I unfortunately couldn't make it.
All good, all good. I just have one question. I know we had a discussion about the basis points to the Development Corporation. Where did that end up?
Well, that's the board's decision. You know, I mistakenly put the administrative fee in as a full percentage. And then when I was speaking with the bankers, they looked at prior transactions, and in particular refundings and the issuer fee, even back when the IDA acted as the issuer prior to 2009, it was typically 50 basis points or even less than that. So the request was made to the board to, kind of honor past practices relative to its administrative fee. And even at 50 basis points, it's a significant fee and cash into the LDC, which, as we all know, is necessary and needed. And that money gets reinvested in the community. And, Ithaca College, like other 501c3 organizations, has the ability to go to DASNY. And those fees, it's a little bit more of an arduous process, but those fees would not stay local. They would go into the state coffers. So that request was made. And, Deb, you and I spoke about it, and I think we polled the board, and I think I received responses from everybody, and sounded like, anyway, that everyone was okay with that.
And that's not written into the resolution, which is
No.
why I couldn't find it.
Obviously I can't unilaterally agree to the fee reduction that I screwed up first quoting without speaking with the board and getting its consent. So there's no motion needed, just so long as you're aware of that's what kind of has been agreed to.
So we don't need to vote on that in the meeting?
No.
And everyone
No.
is okay with the 50 basis points? All right, then. So we'll move forward with this on the understanding that the remuneration to the Development Corporation will be 50 basis points of the amount of the bonds. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
I think we need to do a roll call.
Oh,
Yeah, I think a roll call would be best in this instance, just from an optics standpoint. I don't think it's legally required.
okay. Mr. Gorski?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Duck?
Yes.
Prentice?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
And the chair is a yes.
Great. Congratulations.
Go forth and bond. All right. I have no report other than it will be nice to have a budget again in the Development Corporation because we were pretty close to scraping the bottom of the barrel. Staff report.
Same point you see in your packet, the financial report. Budgeted beginning balance of about 140. Made a commitment to the Collegetown Community Collective, just now shy of 100,000, but soon to receive another 150. That's it.
Okay.
With a $30 million bond.
All right.
Thought it was 35.
Then
Well.
would somebody like to move the minutes from our
Approximately.
last meeting? Greg, thank you. Can I get a second? Duck, thanks. All in favor? All right, that means we can adjourn the Development Corporation meeting and move on to the IDA meeting, which I will now call to order. We've already heard from our public in the privilege of the floor. Are there any additions to the agenda?
There are none.
All right, then let's move on to our business. Beacon Community LLC, final approval. Dan, if you want to, and Rob, you can join him if you'd like.
Yeah, and just for the record, we're joined by Dan Belgraff of Beacon Communities and Rob Lewis of Southworks, who is currently the master pilot holder.
All right, then I would note for the record that the public hearing notice and minutes for the July 29th and August 11th public hearings, the hearing notices are in the agenda packet, and Ina has told me that the minutes from yesterday's continuation of the public hearing will be distributed. Also in the agenda packet, there's the letter that the IDA board received from the ICSD. And we have an authorizing resolution. Would somebody like to get that on the floor? Greg moves. Jeff seconds. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, did you want to speak to this? And
I'll just add, yes, we did have 2 public hearings. I think July the 29th, we had some technical difficulties, so we rebooted again yesterday. I submitted to you in writing today the minutes from yesterday's public hearing. Not sure of the exact steps, but if and when those are approved, we'll put them up on the website. I got in about an hour before the meeting, so anyway, so those meetings were held, roughly a dozen or so comments, including members of the ICSD, former chairs of this body, and others. Yeah, does the board have any questions for Dan at Beacon or Rob at Southworks specific?
does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, if you all don't, there are a couple things I'd like to address, specifically starting with questions that were raised by one of our frequent commenters at yesterday's meeting or public hearing. And we don't generally treat public hearings as a question and answer forum, but some of these questions suggest to me that the public doesn't understand the Southworks situation, doesn't really understand the pilots, and in the interests of making sure that our public does understand this, I wanted to address some of the questions that were raised. The first question was, has the IDA done due diligence in verifying the claims of Beacon communities as to their reputation? I want to read from the summary memo that Kurt drafted based on the due diligence performed by our staff. Beacon is a mission-driven multifamily housing developer, owner, and manager with 150 communities with 19,000 residences across the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Midwest. It has completed more than 945 units in New York State. Beacon and its development team have a proven record of completing projects on time, within budget, and in accordance with all lender requirements. So that answers the first question. The second and third questions seem to be related. Why do we now get this new request for a major tax abatement when the whole Southworks project already got one? And should this one be limited to the additional workforce housing units beyond the number originally projected? The original Southworks pilot was an umbrella. I just want to be sure the public understands this. This is not a second pilot taking a second bite of the apple for the same work. The whole idea of that umbrella was that as individual pieces of this huge project were under development, they would be broken off and given their own pilot, which would be evaluated separately and have its own terms. So this is not a second bite of the apple, and this is why we are seeing this request. Another question, is there an estimate of the number of new children who will attend South Hill Elementary School, the junior high, and the high school? There have been a couple of attempts to figure that out. The questioner actually suggested that the one study that has been done generally of ICSD's student capacity was deeply flawed. However, I will say that that study overall, which was based on demographics, suggested that as time goes on, the ICSD's enrollment will continue to fall, leaving significant capacity. I think that's the best we can do to work with at this time because, as has been pointed out, until this Beacon project is completed, we don't know who's going to be moving in and what the demographic makeup of that population will be. That's the best answer I can give people. And then, should the abatement be limited to the years of construction, but for school taxes end when families move in and children actually add to the expenses of the schools? That's not how this whole system works. And the follow-up to that was the opinion of the questioner that school taxes should not be included in IDA abatements. And I just want to point out the math. The reason that we have these abatements is because the project doesn't pencil out financially without the abatements. The biggest piece of the real property tax abatements are the school taxes. If we remove those from the abatement program, the incentives would not be sufficient to make the projects work financially, and that's why they're structured the way they are. There was a reference to the addition of a school district rep on the IDA with a note that this hasn't happened yet. No, it hasn't happened yet, and the reason it hasn't happened yet is because the Tompkins County legislature needed to get a law passed, a home rule law passed in Albany that would allow us to increase the number of representatives on our IDA. We waited 2 years to get that passed by the state legislature. It was passed this year, and it's been sitting on Governor Hochul's desk ever since. Yeah, I think that's everything that I want to say in response to the questions that were asked yesterday. So sorry to have held everybody up. Shauna?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I think you made some really good points. Whenever I initially saw this project on paper, I thought, wow, what a great project. Our constituents have constantly hammered on and on and on about affordable housing and adding to our housing inventory here in Tompkins County. We know that we have 2,000 people on our wait list for Section 8. We know that there's around a 5-year wait list, and we know that this is such a severe need in our community. And so whenever I think about housing that's opening up and coming to us for an abatement, I mean, for me personally, whenever I looked at the paperwork, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I have a much harder time whenever we're talking about luxury housing or developers that are going to make a ton of money on their project coming to us and asking for abatements. That's a really hard ask for me. But this one seemed like a no-brainer. I have personally called around to some of our housing providers locally and asked around to some of my friends that have projects in your other areas, Beacon's other areas, and there's been nothing but praise. And so I will say, you know, from trusted professionals here in our area that think Beacon does a really great job and understands the population, they understand affordable housing. For me personally, that gives me a lot of confidence for you moving in, because all of us sitting around this table know of a situation that did not land very positively in our community. We continue to struggle with that situation, and so we don't want to get into another, you know, bad situation. With that said, I've been on the IDA for 3 years. I have 3 kids that have gone through ICSD. I have one that's going to be a freshman in the fall. And so I understand the financial situation that ICSD is concerned with. I think the real problem that I have right now is that having been on the IDA for 3 years, never once has anyone from the school board actually come in to speak about any of our other projects. And so for me, the optics are a little bit off, because whenever we talk about affordable housing as a community, we know we need this desperately. And then the one project that we actually hear from people is the affordable housing. And so I guess I question, why didn't we hear about those from Library Place? Why didn't we hear about them from City Center or Herald Square or any of the other projects that we've had abatements for? That's concerning. And it, you know, I don't want to say it's NIMBYism or whatever, but the optics are really, really off. So I think, as Deborah mentioned, in order for a project to move forward here in Tompkins County, the developers have to make sure that the numbers work. And if a developer comes in here, and we know that with affordable housing, most of the time the numbers do not work. If you're not going to receive tax subsidies or credits or abatements, you're in the red. And there's not a developer in the world that would invest knowing that they're going to be in the red. And so, you know, the fact that, for one, I always want to say in government, we should always be questioned whenever we're doing pilots, tax abatements. Like it is the community's job, it's our job to make sure that we vet every single abatement that comes through. And I think that's what we're trying to do. But with that said, I think that this is a good project. And if there are other developers that want to come in here and do affordable housing, this should not be a barrier to having them come in. I don't want Ithaca and Tompkins County, and specifically I think the city of Ithaca has gotten a bad rep for it being really hard to go through zoning, and a lot of developers just don't want to deal with it. And so if there is a way for us to welcome Beacon, welcome these 200 plus apartments to come in and actually establish a home and allow people to have that experience, I think this is a really great project. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Jeff?
So thanks, Deborah. I appreciate you addressing some of the issues there. I think it's also important for us to put in for the record our IDA admin team has given us, some of the board members, some additional information, and I think it's important to kind of put that on the record. So since 2019, we have had, the IDA has supported 1,243 housing units, 798 were market rate, and 445 were affordable. So this projected out to about an additional $30 million of new pilot tax revenue. So within that period of time, we've added 1,300 housing units, but the ICSD enrollments have gone down 328 students within that period of time. So I say that because that's based on actual facts. And I know there's some, you know, estimates going on out there that the Beacon housing will add 150 students and everything, and, you know, kind of the back of the envelope calculations that have really, quite frankly, no basis. So I think it's important for at least the public to understand that we have done some additional due diligence. We haven't, you know, created any studies or anything like that, but we've asked around. To Shauna's point, we asked around about Beacon. The IDA admin staff has given us additional information to look at and to really understand what is the true population of the students, the Ithaca City School District, happening based on the last 7 years of new projects, and it's continued to go down. And obviously that's not a trend in Ithaca, that's a trend nationally. Just our birth rates are going down, so that shouldn't be surprising to anyone. And I will add, look, it doesn't happen every day that, you know, an affordable housing supplier wants to come in and invest $177 million into our community, and $87 million of equity as part of that. And the bigger picture is this is really the first big project of a much larger Southworks redevelopment of an industrial site that we all know and need to happen. So I was a little surprised about some of the public pushback on this, when knowing that this is just a first step in a much larger project that's going to transform the south side of the Ithaca community there. And it, quite frankly, it really needs to happen. And I give Southworks and Beacon credit for starting with affordable housing. We all know, I think the plan is 915 units. The requirement there was then 183 units of affordable, and then they're starting with 230. I was surprised that, obviously, one of the speaker's comments was, why don't we just set the pilot at 183? That makes no sense, given that we want more affordable housing there, and they're going above and beyond what is required there. So I think, look, affordability is a large issue for us across the country. The IDA is not a solution to this affordability, but it's certainly, I feel like we can provide some incentives and to assist the affordability from a housing perspective by, quite frankly, growing the tax base, and hopefully, you know, more units are added, and obviously the rents hopefully will go down from that perspective there. So I feel like we're assisting, we're doing our due diligence, and we're assisting with the affordability issue, but we're not going to be able to solve it. And some of the other agencies and everything need to do their fair part as well. So I'll certainly support this.
Anyone else? Greg?
Yeah, I fully support this. I believe in these incentives, and to Deborah, to your point, or to Shauna's, both of yours, I guess, this process needs to be challenged, right? And it needs to have vigorous public engagement, and we should, question the developers, and we should also question some of the assumptions that some of the taxing jurisdictions are putting forward. It's pretty clear to me that without a project on this site, the estimated taxes paid are about $2,600. Year one after construction with a pilot, it's $173,000 in tax revenue. In the city of Ithaca, about 67% of the tax bill goes to the school district. So this project is actually generating new tax revenue for Ithaca City Schools. To Jeff's point, we've seen an increased tax base, we've seen more tax revenue, and we've seen a decline in enrollment. So to me, the issue at ICSD, which many of our colleagues have raised over there, is not housing going in that's not paying 100% of the taxable value of that property. There seems to be some other issues, but this is an easy one to point to, right? Everybody loves a villain, and I think that what we're doing here is providing an opportunity for those that may otherwise not be able to afford to live in Tompkins County, the opportunity to live here and to enjoy, hopefully, a transformative project where there'd be good paying jobs, there'd be recreation, and there'd be a quality of life that's consistent with the rest of the county. So again, I fully believe in these programs. I understand the challenges that we at the county and many other taxing jurisdictions face, but we only have so many levers in the state of New York that we can pull. Right. Property tax is one of them. We need to bake bigger pies. We need to grow our population. We need to create jobs and opportunity and housing. And if this is the mechanism in which we have to do it, we need to do it, because we can't continue to put the rising costs of everything only on the property owners that we have. And so this, if this helps have a project that is of greater value eventually, we will see greater revenue in our taxes. That's just a fact. So I hope our public can really dig into a lot of the information that we've been presented and really understand that this is not something to be vilified, that this is something that is a mechanism of government that we can do to get the type of things that we want in our community. And to Shauna's point, we've desperately heard the need for more affordable housing and more housing stock in general. So fully supportive of this and appreciate, Shauna, the work that you did to sort of verify, and it's great to hear that Beacon has a strong reputation for delivering great communities. So looking forward to seeing this project come to fruition.
Doc?
Just real quick, everyone who spoke before me has already eloquently expressed pretty much the same views that I have on the project. I'll just add quickly the city's perspective, building on what Greg just said. We've gotten a preview of this year's budget cycle, and we are very lucky in the city. The majority of the IDA's pilots have benefited the city in the way that the city's taxable real estate has increased every year that I've been on council. And some of these take some time to pay off, but we would not be able to maintain the services that we've been able to maintain with the rate of inflation that we've seen over the past decade without the help of the IDA. So this is another example of that. In addition to providing, the affordable housing that we need, in addition to providing, this is all part of like a longer effort that remediated a really toxic site and is bringing it back into productive use. And so from the city's planning goals, even putting aside the taxing and housing goals, if, economic development or like a social building communities and good neighborhoods perspective, I've been really excited about the project. I've also learned, there are many barriers to getting this done. So we were all really excited that the Southwest got this $38 million grant. But I've learned that the process of actually getting that money, which is reimbursable, so they have to actually get a loan and spend it before they can even get the money back. But even before they can start all that, they've got a multi-month, I've already spent months, convincing the state that it's going to a good use. And then now there are more months to wait before they can actually get approval to use that money. So none of this is easy. And we've already, as a body, we've seen projects that got the incentive still fail or require additional help. And so it's not a guaranteed success. Again, as a city legislator, I'm interested in building community and helping our residents, and I feel pretty strongly that this project does that.
Thank you. I'm going to weigh in again. I think that many of the representatives of the ICSD who spoke at our public hearings expressed their concern that affordable housing and public education not be at odds with each other, and I appreciated that. And I also appreciated the opportunity I had to meet with Garrick Blaylock from the ICSD and Catherine Cenero last week from the Ithaca Teachers Association. And I think, we've all talked about, our community needs affordable housing, and I'm like 100% behind that. But I do think that I can understand why ICSD feels that its concerns have been set aside and not given due consideration, because this project builds a huge number of affordable housing units, which we very much need, but the pilot eases in the tax payments much more slowly than would be the case if it was a market rate housing project. So what I'm hoping that we can take away from this is the need for developers like Beacon and Shift to collaborate more closely with the school district as you move through getting these projects up to speed, so that the school district feels like it has some meaningful input in your planning. For example, they're probably going to be considering redistricting at some point, in which case the development of 230 additional units in South Hills District is going to be a driver. And on the other hand, the sequencing of Shift's projects within the Southworks framework could consider moving forward some of the non-residential projects, which will generate tax revenue, additional tax revenue for the school district without generating new students. So I urge you both, gentlemen, to work closely with the ICSD as you move forward with these projects. It would be ever so much more helpful. And if there's a lesson we can learn from the pushback we got on this, which surprised the hell out of most of us, it's that including the school district up front would have avoided some of this. So I'm off my soapbox. If anybody has anything else to say, now's the time.
I would just like to say that I agree with the rest of the colleagues around here. My concern is not the project itself, it's more of how the project is built, which is something that has to be changed in another format. But I agree with the project. I support the project.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Should I do a roll call on this one? Okay, Jeff?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Duck?
Yes.
Prentice?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
And the chair's a yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Thank you, gentlemen.
ICSD is right over there. And I also want to thank Mr. Wissaker for his analysis of the NOI problem. As he knows from our communications, we're kind of wedded to this NOI version of valuation by state law. But the first year, second year problem is certainly one that we might have to look at addressing in future UTEPs, but we can't change our UTEP in midstream when we have a project before us. So, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Job creation accountability. Take it away, Kurt.
I get the following act. The draft document you have in front of you is modeled off of the Genesee, a similar report in Genesee County. Russ and I passed it back and forth a little bit. We got Ina's input in there, and effectively this is in follow-up to your concern about failing to meet job requirements. So the idea would be that this is a form, let me back up a step. So when Ina is collating all the end-of-year information in the first quarter, let's say of 2027, and jobs come in subpar, this form goes out and we request an explanation, and effectively they're called before the IDA for more information. So again, this is something that's kind of been a hanging chad for the IDA, and we just wanted to put words down on paper and have this ready to receive and for the board to vet when appropriate, and the first time being spring of 27.
Comments, questions? I mean, I would say the form makes sense. I think the form's only one piece of it, though, in that we as a board are going to have to look at these when they fall short and decide, is this something we want to take action on? And if so, what action do we want to take? And we need some kind of metrics so that it doesn't look like we're just being subjective about who we go after and who we don't. So if that's, I don't know, which committee would work on those?
Well, not having done it before, I'm not sure. But to your point, yeah, this was an effort to kind of take this from the first step, which was kind of verbal reporting and a more subjective to a more formal, objective material. But yeah, I don't know who gets a first stab at it. Well, I guess we'll learn next year.
No, I appreciate this. This is definitely the first step, but I think, and that's the piece that you could do. The piece that we as a board have to do is deciding what, when a project has crossed a line that we don't find acceptable and how we determine what that is.
I know that in our labor committee that we have discussed this, and we are trying to come up with ways of handling this situation when it does come about. So it's not something that's new to us. We are trying to work through that and come up with a plan.
So I guess we'll just let the labor committee work on that, at least preliminarily.
We have no problem doing that for preliminary.
Okay.
And Prentice, it's Russ, we're happy to help if to establish a metric that might be useful, and to Deb's point, it's hard to come up with a metric because it really has to be done on a case-by-case basis. That's my view of it. Depending upon the facts and circumstances with any project that's not meeting its job covenants, that has to be reviewed individually. But this gives a little bit of teeth, if you will, and we're going to incorporate this form once the board has signed off on it. We don't need official board approval for it, but once the board has signed off, we're going to incorporate it as part of our documents that if you're provided this correspondence, that you agree to complete it.
Yep.
So do we need to take any action or just basically give you a consensus that this form works for us?
That's perfectly fine. If you want to take action too, that's also okay.
Yeah, and realizing that it's subject to change once we provide a stress test next year, then would have thought about it differently. But for the time being, at least it gives us something that's in our quiver and we can use when it's time.
It's a good starting point. What do you all think? Everyone's so quiet, geez.
Yeah, I'm fine with the form as is. I think, the labor committee's got to work through some stuff. So I think it's the first start. I like it. It's nice and simple, one pager. So let's keep it simple.
Okay, so is everybody generally on board with this as it stands? And we'll start there.
Okay, we'll take the draft watermark off and set it aside, and I spoke, it'll be part of our checklist for spring.
Okay, great. All right, then we have committee minutes, informational, labor committee. Prentice, is this your baby?
Not sure.
It's just informational.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Prentice? I don't see any. Okay. Minutes approval. Can I get a motion on the minutes, please? Greg moves. Shauna seconds. Thank you. Any comments or concerns?
I just want to add one thing about that committee meeting. So the reason that we got together initially was to start the discussions of a framework around a workforce development training fund, currently populated by penalties, but the idea being there might...
Can we vote on the minutes and then we'll backtrack? Because they're on the
minutes.
floor.
I thought you were on labor committee minutes, sorry.
No, sorry.
I'll back up.
That's all right. All in favor of the minutes? Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, Kurt, you can backtrack now.
Okay, can I just pick up where I left off? Anyway, Workforce Development Training Fund, kind of two other sidebars there. So if you recall from the last meeting, Prentice was inquiring about local labor utilization as it pertained to the Beacon project. The Beacon project, though, being more than 80% affordable, is waived from that entire policy. However, following that meeting, Dan, in true form, or at least in agreement with what Shauna and I too have heard about Beacon, he called me up, he said, hey, we want to use local labor. Can I get those vendor lists that are listed in the policy? You know, it says if you want contacts, please reach out to us. Well, we didn't have those. And so Prentice and I really took it upon ourselves to chase those down from the Building Trades Council, and I am happy to report as of yesterday, I have them all. I have their bargaining contractors list, I have contacts for each one of the participating unions, and I will then, after this meeting, pass those on to Dan at Beacon so he's got contacts. And the idea being that, in this case, we have a proactive approach to seeking local labor utilization, but later or in other circumstances it may actually work to the benefit of, hey, we gave you contacts for all these folks. Did you reach out to them? Right? So I think it gives us a little bit of defense as well. So thank you, Prentice, for that. We moved that forward. And then had also been brought up the possibility of reducing or altering the complete waiver for affordable housing projects. And the ultimate summary of that was that we would convene with the Housing Committee as well, realizing that a decision of that magnitude should not be made in a vacuum. So more to come on that, but the Labor Committee has discussed possibly meeting monthly or at least way more regularly to kind of get through some of those issues as well. That's all.
Well, if we're talking about policies that we might want to review, I think the first year NOI issue is something that is worth looking at. I mean, I don't know practically how you calculate it on anything else, at least for the first couple of years. But even if you have the Abraham Lincoln and Mother Teresa of developers who are gung-ho on getting NOI to its max in year one, the appearance that it could be manipulated is not a good look for us. I mean, it's been raised now a few times in the context of this particular project. And I'm just wondering if we ought to have a policy that reviews that, say every 5 years. You know, so look at it for 5 years, after 5 years, and if it's up or down, then you change the base amount for the pilot. There might be another way to do that, but I just think it's something that's worth looking at.
Yeah, and that is the plan. The public sentiment, Peter specifically, as it pertains to Beacon, did raise some interesting mathematical points. So I, probably starting next week, am going to go through some modeling exercises on that. Now, the UTEP is written the way that it is, and that's what we're following. But certainly this case, or any really, just begs a reevaluation of like, okay, if this, then what, right? Like, I'm not necessarily proposing we change anything, but I'd like to actually submit to you some scenarios whereby you could consider reconsidering the UTEP, that's all.
I mean, let's try to walk away with some good lessons from this kerfuffle that we've had. So it won't all be for nothing. Okay.
Yeah. So I do intend to report back to you on some of that work.
Okay. So now we will be going into executive session to discuss pending litigation or potential litigation. I will take a motion to do that. Greg, thank you. Could I get a second? Shauna, thank you. And we will take a break for a few minutes so Chris can do his magic with the tech and we can clear the chambers of anyone who doesn't need to be here.